All right, Cowboy. This is Black Muse. I'm here to make you a quick video. Well, let's hope it's quick on how to actually use Brewer's Friend to make a recipe. And I'm going to go ahead and try to make a recipe that I think you might like, something you might want to make. Considering you're looking for something on the maltier or sweeter side, nothing super bitter. I think an extract Dunkless lager is going to be right up your alley. Now, I know it says lager. But you're not going to worry about temperatures and whatnot. I'm going to actually give you a yeast that you can ferment this thing at a warmer temperature, like an ale, and you're still going to get a very lager-esque beer out of it. I promise you that. It's called Fermentus Saf Lager 3470. So uh, it's a great yeast strain. It'll ferment up to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, which is probably like 21, 22 degrees Celsius. You're going to try to keep this beer at 20 degrees Celsius or lower. Okay, that'll be your goal, and that should get you a nice, clean, crisp lager. So I went into the style, and these are all based on the guidelines from the American Brewers Association, right? So I just chose dark European lager and then Munich Dunkel, and now that'll give us. If I click more here, it's going to give us our stats here that we're going to try to match. Okay, between 1.048 starting gravity to 1.056. We're probably going to go right on the low end of that. All right. I'll open that up again later so that you can see it. In here, mine's typically set for metric, and I'm set for all grain, and I have an equipment profile. I have a couple of them built. For now, knowing that you're new, you're probably going to have no equipment profile selected. I'm going to assume that you're going to start with about 12 liters of water, and that you'll probably boil off at least 2 liters. These things could change. You might know this better than I do, so you might be able to adjust these. But in the end, into your fermenter, you're going to try to hit 20 liters into your fermenter. I set an efficiency over here for your steeping grains of 55%. It kind of mocks Nicks. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. You're mostly just trying to get color out of your steeping grains. So we won't worry too much about that. I'm going to make sure this recipe is shared so you can see it. And I'm going to start right off here. So I have kg selected because I'm in the metric system. We'll start with 3 kg of liquid malt extract. And we're going to use Munich. So I'm hoping you can get your hands on this because this Munich malt extract is going to provide you with a nice firm base for a good malty amber beer. In this case, maybe a little bit darker than amber. Now, that's the only liquid malt extract we're going to add. Everything else from there is going to be steeping grains. Okay, so you see this number is going to go up based on the 55% we're using here for efficiency. You may end up getting higher than this if you get more out of it than you might actually get less. So be ready for that if you wanted to add. I doubt you'd want 4 kg, but I don't know if you can buy it in the 3.3 or 3.5 kg. So I'm just going to leave it at 3 kg for now. And on our steeping grains, we're gonna use 3 steeping grains to get this beer where we want it. And the first one we're going to use is going to be Cara Munich 3. Okay, we're going to probably put this somewhere between the 10 to 15% range, which some might argue with, but I think you're going to like it because it's going to provide you with some nice kind of dark fruit notes, bread crust. It's going to give you a real nice like malt character to the beer, one that I think you're looking for. So I think we'll start at 500 grams. And it's, again, Cara Munich 3. It's made typically by Weyermann, but I'm sure you can find it from other companies. So Cara Munich 3. Then we are going to add another Cara, but this one's going to be Cara Aroma. Or excuse me, not Cara Aroma. It's going to be Cara Foam. Now, Cara Foam is a dextrin malt, and it is going to give you a nice head. It's going to give you body because it's going to provide unfermentable sugars. So it's going to give you that kind of, I don't really want to say sweeter note, but it's going to bring the body of the beer up some. So, and forgive me, I haven't done an extract beer in quite a while. So you may not find with this liquid malt extract here, you may actually not find you need the carafoam, except for maybe the head retention. But we're going to put it in there, and you can let me know what you think of it. And the last one we're going to add is Carafa Special. Now, Carafa Special is a dehusked malt. So they roast it, and they dehusk it first, and then they roast it, so you don't get any real astringency out of there's not a big roastiness to it. It's going to taste roasty, but not quite like your others, like Black Patent or anything else. So Carafa Special, and if you use Carafa, it's not going to be dehusked, and it's going to be a little bit more roasty. You have to get the either Carafa Special, or some people call it Carafa Dehusked, or dehusked. So I think we're going to use probably 80 grams of this. I should put it hopefully around the 2% mark. Good. 75 would work too, but we'll leave it at 80. So that is our malt bill. Malt build there. So that's all we're going to use. And if you open this up now, you'll see that we're getting some check marks here, some green ones. We're hitting right between this style guideline. Our final gravity is looking like it's going to hit right between here, which we'll know more once we add our yeast. First, though, we're going to add our hops. Now, this beer you're going to want to be in the 20 IBU range. I would say certainly 20 to 24. And that's because you have such a big bodied beer here with all these different specialty malts and your liquid malt being Munich. If you can't get Munich, you could always just use a Pilsen malt or a pale ale liquid malt or dry malt. Dry malt's going to change your numbers a bit though, because you usually get more on your original gravity out of a dry malt. But if you can get liquid malt, Munich, definitely go for it. If you can't, you're going to have to shoot for something else, and you might have to adjust some of these numbers. And you know that you won't get quite the same beer, but it'll still make excellent beer. So usually on my German beers, I like to add Magnum as my bittering hop. It doesn't have to be. If you wanted to use a traditional Hallertauer, you may. So note that this is set right at the 15 alpha acids. You have to pay attention to this because it's going to change your IBUs. You may find one this year that's not at 15 alpha acids. It's probably at 13 or 12 or 12.7, something along those lines. So you punch that number in here, whatever your package states, and then you can adjust your amount or the time you add it to get the IBUs you want. So like, see, I'm pretty high here at 17. So we'll drop this down to 15. And now that's going to put me right at the 21. Now, I could leave it like this, but I would think in a beer like this, we might want some either flavor or aroma hops. So I'm going to at least I'm going to go ahead and say I want 20 grams of an aroma hop. And I'm going to do something traditional like Hallertauer. There's a Hallertauer Mittelfrüh. You could have used Hirschbrucker too. Tettnang would actually probably work pretty good here. That's going to give you a little more spicier note though. These are going to give you more of that floral note. And we'll add these like right at the 5-minute mark. So that's going to put us right here. 22 IBUs. Solid. You can adjust these as you see. This Magnum's a nice clean bittering hop. You'll enjoy it. You could scrap this all together, but you might want to bump your Magnum up just a little bit and go with a single hop addition. It's up to you. I think this fits the profile pretty well, so we'll go with that. The next thing we can add here is we have other ingredients. You have drop-down menus here. I'm going to add a fining, and it's going to be a Wurflock tablet. So I'm going to type that in here, or just begin it, and then I can select it. So we'll add a oil flock tablet. We won't do it in grams. I think that's 1 each. You don't have to do this. I typically do it with my all grain beers. I don't know if it's really necessary here. We usually add it around the 15 to 10 minute mark. So we'll do that. And when you add this here, that's going to give you when you go to brew this, you're going to get all these steps. So if you click this brew button over here, you're going to get all these steps that tell you when to add everything and what to do. It's really handy. So if I go, I don't have to worry about water chemistry really here, nor do I have to worry about mash guidelines, but I do need to worry about yeast. Right here, I'm going to type 3470, and that's going to give me that fermented SAF lager 3470. It's a lager yeast, but it can ferment warm. So this is probably another nice thing to bring up here in Brewer's Friend. If you can see, I can add a custom attenuation here. Now, typically, I get 80% out of this yeast, and that would put my final gravity at like 1.010. However, you're using liquid malt extract, and I tend to find that with those, my final gravities tend to be higher because it has a lot. It tends to end up having more unfermentable sugars in it. Not always. I could hit you here with something like 75, and that'll put you around 1.012. I'll leave it at 70 for now. One way or another, you're going to let this thing ride for 14 days. So you're going to let it ferment for 14 days. I don't guarantee it's done doing its job. You could leave it longer if you choose, up to 3 weeks. Okay, but 14 days, I usually see this yeast work within 10 days. So 14, I think, is a good safe bet. Certainly longer wouldn't hurt at all. And you could take your final gravity reading. If it's lower than this, great. If not, you may want to give it a couple more days to make sure. But I would assume it's going to be right around here or lower. Again, you're going to want to keep your fermentation temperature at 20 degrees Celsius or less. This yeast will go up to like 21, 22 degrees Celsius, but I'd like to see you keep it. To be honest, 18 would be awesome. 16 even better. But if you can keep it under 20, you'll be all set. This will still make an excellent lager. The other thing we have to choose here is that what's going to come up originally on this is this ale. So you have to use this drop-down menu to choose lager in this case, because you're going to need more yeast cells for a lager. If you can see here, there's 365 billion. Dry yeast comes in 11 gram packets. You're going to need 3 to 4 of them. If you use 3, you're probably going to be under a little because that would be 330 billion. If you use 4, you'll be over. So I'd say go for 4. If you can only afford 3 or pick up 3, then use 3. But certainly I wouldn't use 2. You'd want to be 3 or 4 here. Okay, and then I left you some notes down here at the bottom. You probably already know all this if you've been making extract kits for a while, but I just gave you some instructions here to steep your grains in 12 liters of water for 15 minutes at 65 degrees Celsius. However you typically do it, if you've done this before, I'm sure works just fine. These are just basic guidelines I was giving you. You can gently squeeze out the bag after 15 minutes and then discard it. If you don't squeeze, that's fine. You don't have to. Even squeezing it less than gently or more than gently would be fine. I've never really picked up any astringency from squeezed grains, especially in that small of a amount. So before you add the heat, because you're at 65 degrees already, before you add any more heat, I like to add the liquid malt extract. It'll blend in nice. It'll blend in easier at this nice warm temperature, and it won't have the chance of really scorching on the bottom. So once you've added your liquid malt extract, you can bring your wort to a boil, add the hop additions per the recipe. Like I said, this program is going to give you all the steps and a timer, which is handy. When you're done, cool your wort the best you can, pour it into the fermenter. I don't know how you do it. Some people do an ice bath. Some people don't do anything. They just add the cold water after. I would certainly, since you're going to try to get under 20 degrees Celsius, I would try to use an ice bath or an immersion chiller or something to cool this thing down a bit, and then add cool, sterile water to top up to 20 liters, and then check your temp. If you're below 20 degrees Celsius, go ahead and oxygenate or aerate your wort, however you choose, splash or pure oxygen, whatever you need. Do it a lot because you are using a lager yeast, but again, it will ferment at an ale temperature and it'll do well. But aerate your wort as well as you can. Pitch 3 to 4 packets of Fermentis 3470, and then let it ferment for 14 days while trying to keep the fermenter temp below 20 degrees Celsius. If you have the ability to cold crash, do that for 2 to 4 days after your fermentation's done, and then bottle or keg per usual. If this needs to ride 21 days, go for it. If you want to take a couple of gravity readings to make sure they're consistent before you do anything, go for it. You sound like you've been brewing for a while. This program's new to you, so I'm sure you have your own systems down. Maybe you've already made something similar to this before. Anyway, I'm trying to make this as short as possible. I'm at 16 minutes. I hope this has kind of helped you at least learn how to make a recipe here. You can certainly brew this recipe. It'd be actually nice if I made a video, I bet, using the brew steps so you could see it in action. However, it's pretty intuitive. So, and it's certainly fun. So welcome to Brewer's Friend. I hope this recipe is something you're looking for. I won't be offended if you don't make it and you decide to make a brown ale or something else instead. Totally fine with that. I can help you do your research or whatever you'd like to do, or you could do something totally off the wall. I just thought I like making these videos, so I thought I'd make one to help you out, and hopefully you learned something from it. As you can see here, we've got the green check mark, which means we're within our range. If you pay attention to this, great. If you don't, also great. It doesn't really, if you're not entering into a competition, you don't need to have a green check mark here. So, with that said, I hope you've found this beneficial, and I'll catch you on the forums. Thanks.